My first stomping grounds when I first started being a comedian. I started down there. You know, the gay audience is my best. They were great. They laughed at everything. They got it.
Why they
were support.
Right? They had a vision of how do we create community and create a space where we are.
Joy Behar thought that she was used to controversy. After decades of expressing her views on national television, she had been through countless scandals, feuds, and contentious debates, both personal and political. But even she was taken aback when her longtime colleague, Sonny Hostin, chose to depart the United States following a lawsuit so significant and unexpected that it nearly put a halt to the entire program. For Joy, the mess began innocently enough. This is just another midday TV show that discusses public figures and the extent of their brand management. Nobody anticipated that Sonny, one of the most well-known speakers on the show, would flee the country in what appeared to be a desperate attempt to grab some air, or that a simple conversation about Melania Trump would escalate into a $100 million lawsuit. Since no one, least of all Joy, could have foreseen the media frenzy that ensued, Joy found herself in the peculiar position of not only presenting a program in turmoil, but also coping with the emotional fallout from losing one of her closest on-screen friends. Joy initially learned about the trouble during a post-show party. She was still sitting in her usual spot, browsing through note cards, when a junior producer leaned in to tell her that a big announcement that would shake the entire production was about to happen. The words were uttered softly, as though speaking them aloud might spell calamity. Joy, accustomed to the usual drama of ratings contests throughout the day, nodded and raised an eyebrow. She had no idea that Melania's legal threat was part of the bombshell. Not to mention a 9-figure demand from Trump's team that there would be news the next morning. A string of headlines, each more dramatic than the last, started to appear on Joy's phone. Former First Lady Melania Trump is suing TV host Sonny Hostin for $100 million. One headline proclaimed, while another asked, "Daytime star faces financial ruin?" As Joy scrolled through the feeds, her jaw slackened. Though she and Sonny had frequently dissected public figures, including Melania, over the years, Joy had never truly believed that an offhand remark, especially one meant to be more analytical than accusatory, would unleash such a legal storm. The scale was mind-boggling. $1 million lawsuit would have been shocking enough, but a $100 million demand took this fiasco to an entirely different stratosphere. Her phone buzzed nonstop with texts and calls. Friends in the industry asked if she was all right. Executives higher up the chain wanted reassurance that the show could keep its calm, at least outwardly. The entire network seemed to quake at the possibility that it might be named in the lawsuit as well.
How do you keep it fresh? I mean, there's a lot of pressure. You got to be tuned in every day.
Yeah.
Keep it fresh.
Well, I think that the concept of the show is inherently fresh because every day it's about what's in the newspapers.
I mean, for you.
Oh, for me?
Yeah, how do you get up every morning and deliver the goods the way you need to?
People often ask me, what kind of research we do. But I don't need to research exactly the way you would if you were writing a theme paper.
That first day felt surreal, and Joy found herself pacing the hallway outside the studio, half expecting cameras to leap out and inform her that this was all part of some elaborate prank. But the grim faces of producers who passed by said it all. This was no joke. Melania Trump's legal team appeared deadly serious. Within hours, Joy stepped into the green room to find a visibly shaken Sonny Hostin reviewing documents with her own attorney. Normally, Joy prided herself on her quick wit and ability to diffuse tension, but she sensed immediately that cracking jokes would only intensify Sonny's anxiety. Still, Joy's curiosity simmered. How on earth did a commentary about brand images and philanthropy spiral to this extent? From what Joy could piece together, Sonny had weighed in during a chat about celebrities who leveraged charitable activities as part of their personal branding. In referencing Melania's philanthropic record, Sonny apparently allowed for the possibility that some high-profile claims might be deceptive. It wasn't the first time the show had tackled the topic, but for reasons Joy couldn't fully grasp, these comments had stuck out to Melania's camp as profoundly defamatory. They had responded with an almost militant zeal, filing a lawsuit that dwarfed anything Joy had seen in her entire career. The next week was a maelstrom. Joy tried to carry on as normal, putting forth her usual blend of humor and outspokenness on the air. Yet she felt the tension with every passing moment. Outwardly, the show still featured comedic banter, interviews, and the typical rotation of hot topics. Inwardly, a darkness pressed in. Gossip ran rampant among staff. Some speculated that the lawsuit might annihilate Sonny's personal savings. Others thought the network would simply distance itself from her, and a few whispered that Sonny might leave the show for good. Joy found herself sandwiched between loyalty to her friend and the duty to keep the program afloat. Producers were discreet, but Joy sensed their fear. A $100 million loss, it wasn't just an existential threat to Sonny. It could unhinge the entire enterprise, from network advertisers to the show's carefully curated brand. Through it all, Joy and Sonny kept their routine on set. They shared quips, exchanged opinions, and followed the teleprompter like seasoned professionals. But backstage, Sonny's face betrayed her mounting distress. The natural warmth in her eyes seemed dimly an unspoken worry in fleeting moments. Joy would murmur words of encouragement. "We'll get through this. Try not to let it break you." Or simply, "I'm here for you often." Sonny managed a grateful smile, but the tension never really left her posture. Fans speculated endlessly on whether Sonny would appear in a remote interview, or if she would call into the show. She didn't either. After the initial postcard, no more public words surfaced. Joy respected the silence, assuming Sonny was working out her next legal steps with attorneys. Quietly, Joy hoped for some miraculous settlement or a statement from Melania's team that might de-escalate the standoff. But days turned into a full week, then two. By the time a month had passed, Joy felt the absence like a dull ache every day she came to work. Media coverage ebbed slightly as fresh headlines took precedence, but the legal system continued grinding along behind the scenes. Internally, network executives were far from relieved. They worried that if Sonny's case went poorly, it could establish a precedent making talk shows vulnerable to a flood of defamation claims. Some lobbied for a more robust system of editorial checks, meaning that co-hosts would have to clear certain statements with legal staff before airing them. The discussions left Joy uneasy. Part of the show's appeal lay in its spontaneity and honesty, but she saw the writing on the wall. High-stakes lawsuits like this might force a transformation that undercut the show's core identity. She wondered if Sonny, from afar, realized the ripple effects her predicament was unleashing. When at last Sonny broke her silence in a brief social media post, Joy was relieved and unsettled in equal measure. The post featured a single photograph of a balcony overlooking a scenic vista, captioned with a short note thanking supporters for their kindness and patience. There was no direct mention of Melania, the lawsuit, or the show. Yet Joy saw hope in that short message.
You want to scare the man. You don't scare them when you're a woman comedian and you get up there with a microphone and you're, got all that power. You don't want to scare them. There he is. See, we fool around. We carry on. He's looking at the computer and I'm giving him.
But I also like how you said.
That was at the wedding.
That was at the wedding, by the way.
That's our wedding shot.
Classic. But also how you say, how you look at each other, how you see each other.
He sees Angelina Jolie. I see Brad Pitt.
Maybe Sonny was finding the strength to step forward, to reclaim her place on set. Perhaps with the right legal strategy, she'd be able to face the lawsuit head-on. Joy wanted to believe that a resolution, no matter how complicated, was at least possible. However, the show's producers maintained caution, advising Joy to refrain from reading too much into one social media post. For all they knew, Sonny's legal advice might still be to avoid stepping foot in the United States until certain negotiations concluded. Joy disliked this cloak-and-dagger climate. She had built a career on talking openly, even when her opinions ruffled feathers. Now a hush had descended over the show, with lawyers constantly reminding her not to say anything that might complicate the lawsuit further. Sensing that the audience could also feel the show's tension, Joy tried injecting moments of humor or spontaneity, but it felt forced. Viewers wrote in, complaining that the once lively table conversations had become sanitized and stiff. Indeed, everything about the program seemed overshadowed by the specter of Melania's $100 million demand. Joy's comedic instincts told her to poke fun at the absurdity of such a sum. But each time she considered cracking a joke, a faint alarm bell reminded her, she too could become a target of a defamation claim if she ventured into unwelcome territory. That realization set Joy on edge, fueling a sense of resentment toward the entire situation. Where did it end? How had daytime talk devolved into a legal battlefield so formidable that one of its brightest personalities felt compelled to leave the country? Eventually, Joy decided that if the show was going to continue, it had to address Sonny's departure more directly. Taking a calculated risk, she broached the topic during a segment, choosing her words cautiously. She spoke about how the legal process can sometimes be overwhelming and how we all miss Sonny's presence. Her co-hosts nodded in agreement, although they too seemed wary about stepping into a minefield. Joy didn't mention Melania by name, but the implication was clear. Sonny wasn't simply on vacation. She was in hiding, in a sense, from a lawsuit that threatened every aspect of her professional existence. Producers privately were furious at Joy for going off script. One confronted her after the broadcast.
And then I used to lose my voice, like asking for things. I was a little shy.
Wow.
Yeah, but then 20 years of therapy. And, yeah.
So then tell me, what is the greatest lesson that View has given you throughout all these years, would you say?
The greatest lesson?
Yeah, the greatest lesson for yourself.
Oh my goodness. Give me an example of what a lesson might be.
Well, what has it taught you? You've been on the show for all these years. What have you learned about yourself being on the show?
Warning that even a veiled comment about Sonny could be twisted into fodder for the lawsuit. Joy listened politely, but remained unmoved. Someone had to acknowledge the elephant in the room. Ignoring it only made the show look disingenuous. To her relief, the episode aired without immediate backlash, though legal advisors made her promise to keep further remarks to a minimum. Joy didn't relish the constraint, but she had no choice if she wanted to maintain any stability for the program and her remaining co-hosts. Days stretched into weeks, and the show settled into a peculiar new normal. Guest panelists attempted to fill Sonny's chair. Ratings fluctuated, with some curious viewers tuning in just to see if the meltdown would be addressed further, while longtime fans expressed frustration at Sonny's prolonged absence. Joy did her best to remain an anchor, providing levity where she could, bridging discussions, and occasionally alluding to the show's challenging time without elaborating. She felt that both the staff and the public were waiting for a resolution. Either Sonny's triumphant return or a formal announcement of severance. Neither occurred. The air was thick with uncertainty behind the scenes. Joy occasionally caught glimpses of the legal updates. Rumor had it that Melania's attorneys insisted on a formal apology, possibly even a significant monetary settlement. Sonny's lawyers pushed back, claiming that her remarks were the sort of commentary talk shows regularly engaged in, protected by free speech. The show's host, Melania's attorney, said, "I'm not going to be a judge. I'm not going to be a judge. I'm not going to be a judge," were the sort of commentary talk shows regularly engaged in, protected by free speech principles. Joy recognized that the truth likely lay somewhere in between, but the question of how far the lawsuit would go and whether it would destroy Sonny's career remained unknown. Though the lawsuit overshadowed every aspect of work, Joy still found moments to reflect on her friendship with Sonny. She recalled their earliest days on set, how the two of them had sometimes clashed politically, yet maintained mutual respect. It pained Joy that these years of camaraderie had led to such a precarious juncture, and she couldn't ignore the small voice in her head that asked, "Could something like this happen to me if I slip up on air?" Sure enough, rumors soon circulated that the two legal teams were ironing out a resolution. The specifics remained sealed, but the general consensus among show staff was that Sonny would eventually return, albeit under certain guidelines about future discussions. Joy hoped these guidelines wouldn't stifle the show's ability to tackle sensitive topics, but she also understood that the world of daytime talk had just received a massive wake-up call. Idle commentary about powerful figures could trigger real, life-altering repercussions. Months later, Sonny reappeared on set for a quiet, unannounced taping. The plan was to have her slip into the studio near the end of the show, as a test run to gauge audience reaction. Joy's heart pounded as Sonny walked on. She hadn't seen her colleague in person since the day before Sonny fled. Sonny looked much the same, poised, with that trademark resolute smile. But Joy sensed a slight hesitancy in her manner, as though she was carefully measuring each step. The audience, catching sight of her, erupted in applause, mixed with a flurry of confused murmurs. Joy stepped forward and embraced her, a gesture that symbolized the relief of seeing a friend returned from an ordeal that had, for a time, seemed insurmountable. After the broadcast, Joy and Sonny shared a quick hug backstage. There were no tears or dramatic speeches, just a moment of mutual understanding that they had both weathered a storm. Sonny mentioned that the legal matter wasn't entirely closed, but hinted at positive developments. Joy didn't pry, conscious of how delicate the situation remained. Instead, she simply said, "I'm glad you're back," letting that speak for all the complicated feelings swirling within in the weeks that followed. The show attempted to reclaim its normal rhythm. Inevitably, the on-air topic still included celebrity controversies and political drama, but everyone seemed mindful of crossing certain lines. A quiet caution replaced the previous carefree banter. Joy continued to be her irreverent self, but with a newly sharpened awareness of the consequences that could arise from an offhand remark. Sonny's commentary too acquired a somewhat more measured tone, as if shaped by the harrowing experience of facing a colossal defamation claim, yet the memory lingered of that surreal chapter when Sonny vanished without a trace, leaving Joy to confront the swirling in speculation and media uproar alone. The meltdown became a cautionary tale in daytime television circles. Producers, hosts, and guests alike recognized that the stakes had been raised. Defamation suits were no longer abstract threats, they were real, capable of forcing an accomplished attorney and beloved talk show personality to leave the country in search of respite. The cost in stress, finances, and career stability was staggering. Still, from Joy's perspective, the story held an unexpected silver lining. It tested the resilience of her bond with Sonny and underscored the unpredictable volatility of modern media. Joy emerged from the crisis with a renewed sense of purpose. She would remain outspoken, but she would tread carefully when discussing sensitive subjects tied to powerful individuals. She refused to let fear dictate her every word, but neither would she discount the possibility that a single ill-chosen state could unravel lives in time. The lawsuit itself faded from front-page news, replaced by fresh headlines and controversies. Life on set found a new, steadier rhythm. The entire cast resumed their roles with a blend of relief and caution. Joy still made jokes, Sonny brought her analytical mind, and the audience returned to the familiar rapport that made daytime viewing feel like a conversation among friends. Occasionally, Joy spotted a spark of tension in Sonny's eyes when a sensitive topic arose, but she also saw determination, a will to keep doing the job she loved no matter the risks. As for Joy, she often reflected on how bizarre and unsettling it was to see her friend's name alongside that giant dollar figure, 100 million, a sum that might as well have been infinite given how astronomical it felt. How strange it had been to process the idea of Sonny, usually so composed, choosing to board a plane and vanish into an overseas sanctuary.